After studying this module, you shall be able to know about the challenges to be achieved in organizational behavior. Explore all those challenges through this module and learn about the challenges of different organizations. You will also learn to explore the opportunities that come through these studies. Let us begin by the introduction to the challenges of organizational behavior. The field of organizational behavior is a distinguished area of valuable knowledge. Organizations are simply not concrete physical structures. They consist of people working as individuals or groups, both independently and interdependently towards some purpose. Hence, the need to study how people act in organizations in a systematic manner is the need of the day. Organizational behavior knowledge benefits not only the employee as an individual, but also the financial health of the organization. Organizational behavior practices cause better financial performance. In spite of its enormous payoffs, organizational behavior has its own limitations. It cannot get rid of all the vices in organizational settings in totality, but it can reduce them considerably. The major setback in the area of organizational behavior arises from 1. Behavioral bias, 2. The diminishing returns, 3. Is the unethical practices, 4. Seeking shortcuts, 5. Dynamic environmental conditions, 6. Employee empowerment. Now the challenge that lies ahead of us is to overcome all the above mentioned obstacles in organizational behavior. The following are some of the significant problems. First problem is that of improving people skills. Then is improving the quality and productivity. Next is the managing of workforce diversity, followed by responding to globalization, empowering people, coping with temporariness, stimulating innovation and change, emergence of the e-organization, improving ethical behavior. Let's start with improving people skills. Technological changes, structural changes, environmental changes are accelerated at a faster rate in the business field. Unless employees and executives are equipped to possess the required skills to adapt those changes, the achievement of the targeted goals cannot be achieved in time. There are two different categories of skills. They are the managerial skills on one side, and there are the technical skills. Some of the managerial skills include listening skills, motivating skills, planning and organizing skills, leading skills, problem solving skills, decision making skills, etc. These skills can be enhanced by organizing a series of training and development programs, career development programs, induction and socialization, etc. Now, what are the implications for managers? Designing an effective performance appraisal system with built-in training facilities will help upgrade the skills of the employees to cope with the demands of the external environment. The lower level cadre in management is required to possess more of technical skills. As they move towards the upward direction, their roles will be remarkably changed and expected to have more of human relations and conceptual skills. Moving on to improving the quality and productivity, we all know that quality is the extent to which the customers or users believe the product or service surpasses their needs and expectations. For example, a customer who purchases an automobile has certain expectation, one of which will be that the engine will start when it is turned on. If the engine fails to start, the customer's expectation will not have been met, and the customer will perceive the quality of the car as poor. Deeming defined quality as a predictable degree of uniformity and dependability at low cost and suited to the market. Now, what are the implications for the managers? Today's managers understand that any efforts to improve quality and productivity must influence their employees. These employees will not only be a major force in carrying out changes, but increasingly will participate actively in planning those changes. Managers will have to put in maximum efforts in meeting the customer's requirements by involving everyone from all the levels and across all the functions. Regular communications, both formally and informally, with all the staff at all the levels is a must. Let's go on further, and here we talk about managing workforce diversity. As you must be aware that this refers to employing different categories of employees who are heterogeneous in terms of gender, race, ethnicity, relation, community, physically disadvantaged, homosexuals, elderly people, etc. The primary reason to employ heterogeneous category of employees is to tap the talents and potentials, harnessing the innovativeness, obtaining synergetic effect among the diverse workforce. In general, employees wanted to retain their individual and cultural identity. They also want to retain their values and lifestyles, even though they are working in the same organizations with common rules and regulations. The major challenge for organizations is to become more accommodating to diverse groups of people by addressing their different lifestyles, family needs and work styles. Now, what are the implications for managers here? Managers have to shift their philosophy from treating everyone alike to recognizing individual differences and responding to those differences in ways that will ensure employee retention and greater productivity, while at the same time not discriminating. If workforce diversity is managed more effectively, the management is likely to acquire more benefits such as creativity, innovation, as well as improving decision making. You know that employees have different decision making skills. So, when we have a diverse workforce, we get different perspectives on problem solving. If diversity, on the other hand, is not managed properly and showed biases to favor only a few categories of employees, there is a potential for higher turnover, more difficulty in communicating, and more interpersonal conflicts. Responding to globalization is the next point. Today's business is mostly market driven. Wherever the demands exist, irrespective of distance, location, climatic conditions and business operations, are expanded to gain their market share and to remain at the top rank, etc. Business operations are no longer restricted to a particular locality or region. Companies' products or services are spreading across the nations using mass communication, internet, faster transportation, etc. An Australian wine producer now sells more wine through the internet than through outlets across his own country. More than 95% of Nokia hand phones are being sold outside their home country. If you go by the statistics of other phones nowadays, like for example Samsung for that matter, the same applies there. Finland, Japanese cars are being sold in different parts of the globe. Sri Lankan tea is exported to many cities across the globe. Executives of multinational corporations are more mobile and move from one subsidiary to another more frequently. The implications for the managers here is that globalization affects our managerial skills in at least two ways. One, an expatriate manager has to manage a workforce that is likely to have different needs, aspirations and attitudes from the ones that are used to manage in their home countries. Second, understanding the culture of local people is very important, because this is how their personality is shaped, and accordingly learn to adapt one's management style to these differences is very critical for the success of any business operations. One of the main personality traits required for expatriate managers is to have the sensitivity to understand the individual differences among people and exhibit tolerance for all of this. Next point, and an important one, is that of empowering people. The main issue is delegating more power and responsibility to the lower level cadre of employees and assigning more freedom to make choices about their schedules, their operations, procedures, and the method of solving their work-related problems. Encouraging the employees to participate in work-related decisions will sizably enhance their commitment at work. Empowerment, if we try to define it, it can be defined as putting employees in charge of what they do by eliciting some sort of ownership in them. Managers are doing considerably further by allowing employees full control of their work. An increasing number of organizations are using self-managed teams where workers operate largely without the boss. Due to the implementation of empowerment concepts across all the levels, the relationship between managers and the employees is reshaped. Managers will act as coaches, as advisors, sponsors, facilitators, and help their subordinates to do their task with minimal guidance. So what are the implications here for the managers? The executive must learn to delegate their tasks to the subordinates and make them learn how to be responsible at work. In doing so, managers have to learn how to give up control, and employees have to learn how to take responsibility of their work. So these two things go hand in hand. When the employees learn to be responsible and at the same time the managers learn to delegate work to their employees, their subordinates, and not have control of them, then what happens is that the subordinates or the employees of an organization are able to make suitable decisions. If the employees are empowered, it drastically changes the type of leadership skills. You all know that there are different leadership styles in an organization. Power relationships, the way work is designed, and the way organizations are structured. Let's move on to coping with temporariness. In recent times, the product life cycles are slimming. The methods of operations are improving, and fashions are changing very fast. In those days, the managers needed to introduce major change programs once or twice every decade. Today, change is an ongoing activity for most managers and it is not dependent on, let's say, a fixed period of time. The concept of continuous improvement implies constant change. In yesteryears, there used to be a long period of stability and occasionally interrupted by short period of change. But at present, the change process is an ongoing activity due to competitiveness in the developing new products and services with better features. Everyone in the organization today faces some kind of temporariness, and this temporariness is a permanent temporariness because, like I said, change becomes an ongoing process in any organization. The actual jobs that workers perform are in a permanent state of flux. So workers need to continually update their knowledge and skills to perform new job requirements as and when they come up. Let's discuss the implications for managers. Managers and employees must learn to cope with temporariness. They have to learn to live with flexibility, spontaneity, and unpredictability. The knowledge of organizational behavior will help understand better the current state of world of continual change, the methods of overcoming resistance to change process, the ways of creating a better organizational culture that facilitates the change process, etc. The next point that we are going to talk about is stimulating innovation and change. Today's successful organizations must foster innovation and be proficient in the art of change. Otherwise, they will become candidates for extinction in due course of time and vanished from their field of business. Victory will go to those organizations that maintain flexibility, they continually improve their quality and beat the competition to the marketplace with a constant stream of innovative products and services. For example, if we talk about Compaq succeeded by creating more powerful personal computers for the same or less money than IBM or Apple, and by putting their products to market quicker than the bigger competitors. Amazon.com has been putting in a lot of independent bookstores out of business, as it proves you can successfully sell books from an internet website. The implications for managers is that some of the basic functions of business are being displaced due to the advent of a new system or systems and procedures. For example, the business of selling books online through internet is a completely new concept, and some time back probably nobody could have even thought about it. Internet selling of an organization's products can give a huge impetus for innovation and change to that organization. Otherwise, it can prove to be a major hindrance. The challenge for managers is to stimulate an employee's creativity and tolerance for change. The next point that we are going to talk about is improving ethical behavior. The complexity in business operations is forcing the workforce to face ethical dilemmas, where they are required to define what is right and what is wrong. This kind of difference, when the employees are able to find out in the assignment that they are given, this is called ethical behavior. For example, should the employees of a chemical company blow the whistle if they uncover the discharging of its untreated effluents into the river are polluting the water resources of that country? Do managers give an inflated performance evaluation to an employee they like, knowing that such an evaluation could save that employee's job? The ground rules governing the constituents of good ethical behavior have not been actually clearly defined. Differentiating right things from the wrong behavior has become more blurred. Following unethical practices have become a common practice, such as successful executives who use insider information for personal financial gain, employees in competitor business participating in massive cover-ups of defective products, etc. The implications for managers are that managers must evolve code of ethics to guide employees through ethical dilemmas. How can this be accomplished? Organizing seminars, workshops, training programs, etc. will help improve ethical behavior of employees. At the same time, retaining consultants, lawyers, voluntary service organizations to assist the company in dealing with ethical issues will ensure positive ethical behavior. Managers need to create an ethically healthy climate for its employees where they can do their work productively and confront a minimal degree of ambiguity regarding what constitutes the right and what constitutes the wrong behavior. We are going to talk about behavioral biases now. Behavioral biases arise when practitioners tend to overlook the broader system of the organization while overly emphasizing satisfaction of employee needs and experiences. The delicate balance gets disturbed when the concern for people outweighs the concern for the organizations. One cannot replace the needs of people as consumers of organizational outputs by the needs of people as employees of the organization. Simply creating a satisfied workforce is narrowing down the field of organizational behavior to such an extent that the original essence of its satisfied employee to be the productive employee is completely lost. At the same time, people with high ambitions about organizations turnover show little regard for employee needs. This also is misapplication of organizational behavior objectives. Going overboard with the concern for employees can make them dependent, irresponsible, low in self-discipline, low in self-esteem and confidence. Talking about diminishing return. In economics, the law of diminishing return states that when more of a desirable input is added to an economic situation, there is a declining amount of extra output after a certain point. The output from each unit of added input tends to become smaller. Eventually, the added output reaches zero and continues to decline further when more units of input are added. Similarly, in organizational behavior, at some point, increases of a desirable practice produce declining results, or let's say declining returns, leading to a zero return and moving towards negative returns with more increases continues to be added. Here one needs to understand that there is an optimum amount of every practice in a situation beyond which it is most likely to lead to a decline in consequences or returns. More of a good thing will not necessarily be good. The law of diminishing returns, a systems concept, is applicable because of the complex system relationship of many variables in one particular situation. Hence, when an excess of one variable develops, although that variable is desirable, it tends to restrict the operating benefits of other variables so significantly that net effectiveness declines. The point to be understood is that by organizational effectiveness, it is not attained by focusing on and enhancing one human variable. Rather than, it focuses on combining all variables together judiciously. The next topic that I am going to discuss with you is that of unethical practices. There are vices in the field of knowledge, and organizational behavior is no exception. Its knowledge and techniques can be used to manipulate people unethically. To get maximum gains out of this field, we need to have respect for human dignity and not use organizational behavior ideas for selfish and unethical practices. The principle of organizational behavior propagates ethical, judicious and work-oriented use of human resources. However, just like any other field of knowledge where its information may be disused, abused, as well as used not too well, organizational behavior is not spared either. People who are in power with position tend to influence and control other people's lives in order to maintain their own power. They have to actually do something else. They should maintain high levels of ethical and moral standards and in no way should misuse their power. Ethical leadership should adhere to the principles of number 1, social responsibility, which is a responsibility towards all other people in the organization who have lesser power. Open communication, which is a two-way communication, should be transparent and completely same for everybody in the organization. When I say same, it means that each employee should feel entitled to a fair hearing and the same level of communication that other people are getting. Cost benefit analysis is the third point. Not only should the economic costs and benefits, but the human and social costs and benefits of any organizational activity should be weighed properly before undertaking it. Next, we talk about seeking shortcuts, which is another problem facing the organizational field nowadays. It is confronting today's organization by affecting the nature of the business organizations to expect high returns in a short span of time. In order to achieve this, most managers are on a constant lookout for a shortcut to problem solving, also to gaining mileage and achieve quick and handsome payoffs. They tend to accept latest fads which are not actually time tested. They tend to overlook main problems and treat only the superficial ones. This in itself defeats the whole ideology of organizational behavior. The ideology actually advocates long-term strategic plans and effective analysis and implementation of all the systems in the organization for efficient use of human resources. Organizational behavior's principles are focused on utilizing multifaceted approaches towards problem solving and management. The next topic is that of dynamic environmental conditions. Periods of economic growth and recession are not alien to any organization. The environment in which any organization operates is always dynamic. Hence, there is an imperative need to develop principles and ideas of organizational behavior which show resilience to such varying environments. The organizations need to sustain and grow in challenging periods of scarce resources, stiffer competition, low demand, employee poaching, etc. Organizational behavior tends to focus and develop its field in such a way that it incorporates newer leadership styles, motivational techniques, conflict resolution models, and so on to cope with the dynamic environments and emerge successful. The next point is that of employee empowerment. Empowerment assumes that employees are willing to accept responsibility and improve their daily work processes and relationships. Closely related to social power is the popular technique of employee empowerment. Empowerment may be defined as recognizing and releasing into the organization the power that people have in their wealth of useful knowledge and internal motivation. Innovation implication is the first point in empowerment of employees. Empowerment encourages innovation because employees have the authority to try out new ideas and make decisions that result in new ways of doing. Second point is that of access to information. When employees are given access to information as vital part of their empowerment, their willingness to cooperate gets enhanced. The third point is accountability and responsibility. Although employees are empowered to make decisions they believe that will benefit the organization, they must also be held accountable and responsible for the results. The challenges to put empowerment into action lies with the organization. Let's summarize the module that you have studied. What you have learned is, number one, behavioral bias arises when practitioners tend to overlook the broader system of organization while overly emphasizing satisfaction of employee needs and experiences. Second point is, going overboard with concern of employees can make them dependent, irresponsible, low in self-esteem, discipline and confidence. The third point is that you have learnt about the law of diminishing returns, which states that when more of a desirable input is added to an economic situation, there is declining amount of extra outputs after a certain point. The output from each unit is added. Input tends to become smaller. The nature of business organizations to expect high returns in a short span of time is another thing that you have learnt about. In order to achieve this, most managers are on a constant look for shortcuts to problem solving, gaining mileage and achieve quick and handsome payoffs. They tend to accept latest fads which are actually not time tested. They overlook the main problems and treat only the superficial symptoms. The fifth summary is that the environment in which an organization operates is dynamic. Hence, there is an imperative need to develop principles and ideas of organizational behavior which show resilience to such varying environments. The last summary point is recognizing and releasing into the organization the power that people have in their own wealth, and the wealth is that of useful knowledge and internal motivation, which is called empowerment.